right. Welcome, everybody, to this episode of American Sailor. I am excited to be here today with Lexi Pline and the ICSA Executive Director, Peter Fanta, who we are going to pick his brain and learn a little bit about the upcoming fall sailing season, which is just kicking off as we're talking. Lexi, why don't you get us started here?
All right, thanks for joining us, Peter. Peter and I met at the College Nationals this past spring. Have you been in the role for a year yet? Or I mean, it's only been a couple months, right?
It's only been a few months. I was part-time before the Nationals and then started full-time in June. So that was my first Nationals as kind of partial executive director, and now I'm full-time for this fall and the coming spring.
Sweet. So tell us a little bit about the role. I know it's kind of there's been an executive director in the past, but that looks a little different now. So what does the role look like for you?
There was an executive director prior to me. I'm the second in the hopefully long line of executive directors of college sailing. The job is pretty much everything to do with college sailing on a day-to-day running of the programs. It's keeping everything running smoothly. It's making sure that all the things that we need to do to get our national championships and everything else we do ready and executed brilliantly as they had been in the past. It's also a look to the future. It's not just running day to day, but it's a look to the future, where we want to go, how we want to get there, what are the barriers that are holding us back, and what are some of the opportunities that we have. So it's all encompassing across the board.
Yeah, so what are some things you kind of mentioned it, but what are some things you see as challenges or things you want to like step up to in the college sailing space as you continue in this role?
Also, as you've been seeing in the news, all colleges are facing financial issues, not just, and all college sports are kind of in a turmoil right now. There were a number of recent changes in the law with the NCAA and how we pay some college athletes and not others. So all college athletic departments are trying to find their way in this new environment. So it's a tight financial time for not only the colleges, but the athletic departments in the colleges. So what we're trying to do is ensure that we have a vibrant program in college and across all our colleges, despite the fact that some of the budgets may not be as large as they were last year. We have to be sensitive to costs. We have to be sensitive to our sponsors who provide us funds and the ability to run our national championships. We understand that these are tight times, so we have to be, that's one of our considerations as we go forward this year and into the future years, how we do this in a cost-effective manner.
What are some of the things you guys are doing to try to make that, like, kind of lessen the financial burden across the board? Is there anything that you've pushed into place already? Anything specifically that you're looking at?
So we're looking at venues and timing of venues. I'll give you an example. We sail in some very expensive areas for hotel rooms for teams and places to fly into. So if we're running a national championship in, pick your place, let's say next year in Annapolis, not this coming spring, but the following spring in Annapolis, we want to make sure we deconflict it as much as possible with things like the Naval Academy graduation. So we're not trying to stack the two of them on top of each other. So all of a sudden, these teams find themselves driving a couple hours for an affordable hotel room. We're looking at venues across the country where we could make it a little more reasonable and affordable while still maintaining that high level of competition that ICSA is known for in its nationals.
I love that. And this kind of goes into that a little bit, but broadening the scope a little bit. What is your vision for the ICSA, both like short term, so in this next year, but also in the next like 5 to 10, growing it outwards?
So we would like to see some of the teams that kind of fell off during COVID or went from varsity to regional or regional to or club, club to varsity, and it moved back and forth. They kind of escalated and de-escalated in that period of COVID. A lot of athletic departments kind of took the chance to size themselves accordingly. We'd like to see some of those teams come back. We have approximately 187 teams that are actively competing. We have another 70 or so teams that are on our rolls, and we're hoping to get them back into an active competition within the next couple of years. More coming back this year. We've already had some great results with some teams refreshing themselves. We've already heard from a couple teams that are going from club to varsity or intend to here shortly. So we're really looking forward to that expanded competition across the country. We'd like to penetrate into some of the markets around the country. As you know, Whitney coming from the Midwest is a huge area with a lot of different places to sail, everywhere from the Great Lakes to the, ponds and rivers of the upper Midwest to the great areas around Ohio and down south. So we're trying to get an active representation across some of these clubs that were historically active, but may have fallen off a little bit throughout the years. So we would like to see a growth of college sailing. Our high-end competition is still that, very high-end competition. But one of our bylaws says not only do we have to have the highest end competition at our nationals and so on, but we are here to encourage the growth of college sailing across the country.
That's awesome. We talk a lot about that at US Sailing too, about how we need to make sure we're encouraging the growth of the sport in general. So I think I'm personally excited to hear that that continues to be a goal for the ICSA. And like you mentioned, I was a part of one of those types of teams, right? A club team that tried to compete at all levels, bringing new sailors into the sport and trying to do well at nationals, which is pretty unique in college sports. So how do you envision being able to strike a balance between some of these varsity teams and club teams? Are they going to be able to compete together on the national stage, or how are you envisioning that to work as the sport grows?
Well, the first thing I would tell you that for if you're a club team or club team coached, club team not coached, or a regional team that doesn't have a coach and you're student run, which we have a great deal of student run programs that don't necessarily have a full-time maintainer or coach. The first thing I will tell you is you are absolutely in the mix for a national championship. You are absolutely in the mix to hit the top 10 someplace. I'll give you a great example from the area where I'm currently located in the Washington, D.C. area. We have George Washington University in the area. They were a varsity team, but during COVID, as you saw, a lot of teams went down to a club status because the athletic department didn't have any revenue coming in. So they are a club team. They are student coached, student run, and they were top 10 at the Nationals this last year in fleet racing. They had an incredible finish. And so, we routinely have other club teams come in and do very well at the Atlantic Coast Championships, at the national championships. University of Michigan was celebrating on the pier at the team racing championships every time they had they came in above their expected area. They were cheering their team on, and it was great to see. I talked to their coach for a long time. These teams have the ability to improve and get to the top of nationals. It takes work. It probably takes more work than they actually understand when they set those goals, but those goals are not unrealistic. Find the good sailors, train hard, and you will end up in the top at nationals.
Yeah,
As someone whose team also kind of fell off during COVID, like BU's been a club team forever, I think. I don't think we've ever been varsity. We fell off during COVID a little bit, so it's nice to we feel that. And I saw GW getting their top 10, and that was awesome. Love to see it.
Yeah, and there are incredible leadership opportunities for those student-led teams too, right? Like obviously college sailing is important to a lot of people, but the actual running of some of those teams can be kind of life trajectory changing too. It was for me. So that's great.
Looks great on a resume.
And a shirt. And a shirt. But before we kind of get to our fall preview, for those club teams, like the student leaders that might be listening, or maybe some high school students that are looking at maybe that want to do college sailing, but are going to end up at a club team like that. Do you have one piece of advice for them to keep competing, keep pushing and growing and entering kind of the college sailing upper ranks?
So I've watched a number of club teams do extraordinarily well and actually improve. They set reasonable goals. In other words, they set the goals. If they're coming brand new, have never sailed small dinghies before, maybe they sailed on their parents' boat or something, just improve through the seasons. In other words, you've got 4 years to be able to improve your sailing, and you've got 4 years to be able to improve that team. Don't expect to hit nationals the first week you're in a boat, but setting reasonable goals, practicing more than a couple of times a week. Some of the smaller teams set their goal that they're going to practice once or twice a week for an hour and a half. The club teams that do really well set a routine practice schedule. They stick to it. They sail in all sorts of weather and they just drive each other on the team. It really is beautiful to see when these teams come together and support each other, and it's everybody for the team. It literally is everybody pushing the next sailor to do better and better and better. There's no me in any of these teams. There is absolutely this ability that we're going to push this team as hard as a team, and that really handles a lot of success in these club teams.
And it can be a legacy too. I think some of these club teams like will, the work you put in now, especially if you're from like the ground level of your club team, you might see it in 6 years. You might have already graduated and look back on the kids that were freshmen when you were a senior doing really well in their final years of college. And like, that's super. I think it doesn't always feel gratifying in the moment, but it's really gratifying to see when you graduate to know that you kind of built the foundation for people to be even better than you ever were. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for that in club teams. And I liked seeing it too, even when we graduated, being like, look at how much better everyone got and like continues to be. So
So Lexi, let me follow on to that. There's a huge opportunity for people, and I hear it all the time. I get these cards and letters, and people say, "Hey, I was a college sailor. I want to give back. I want to support." Not only do you support your own team, but you support college sailing writ large. And then you pass the word around that, one of the big value statements of college sailing is these are some of the most toughest, grittiest, most determined people you will ever find. Yes, I understand some of the other sports are very uh, tough and physically and mentally challenging, but what other sport requires you to go for days on end, getting a fire hose of cold water in your face while hiking out fully and driving the boat to the ultimate degree? These are tough people. And we continuously get notes that says, hey, my company has a couple college sailors. I want to hire more college sailors. How do I get to the local teams and how do they come to me? It's not just what we're doing for college sailing, it's what we're doing for the next generation of leaders in corporate and government everywhere around the world, because we really do have these people going everywhere and doing amazing things.
but Whitney and I always say that to each other. I love working with other college sailors because you know that they've been through it. They're willing to like put in the work and like no matter what the challenge is, like, yeah, we're willing to work super long days and like be out there on the water, whatever. And I know that like Whitney and Janelle and my other college sailing coworkers, like I don't even have to think about, yeah, they're gonna do it. Like we're all gonna do it. We're just gonna like lock in.
Gonna
And
get in the
I kind of
car.
love that.
We're gonna drive all night. Our gear is gonna be frozen solid. We're gonna go to class at 7:30 the next day, and we're gonna
Mhm.
like it.
There's something to be
Well,
said. There's something to be said for that level of resilience in everything you do for the rest of your life. And that's one of the messages we're trying to get out. This is a life skill that you're learning in the college sailing, and it will carry you so far.
Totally.
yeah. Well, so as we're talking, it's the first week of September, so people will be listening to this kind of probably throughout the fall, but the fall season's just kicking off. Can you give us a quick overview of kind of the top 10 teams last spring and how you expect them to perform this fall? There's always turnover, people graduate. So talk about that a little bit.
So some of the results were incredible last spring from the nationals, both in the fleet racing and the team racing, both in the open, which is the co-ed, and in the women's events. So the top teams that have been there for the last 3 years were there again. There were some interesting mix-ups or kind of shake-ups. Navy came in second in the open in the open fleet racing. George Washington, as we talked about, hit the top 10. Tulane hit number 2 in the women's teams. What you'll see is across all these teams is very few of their top sailors graduated last year. You are going to see a lot of returning sailors, and I don't want to go team by team because it's kind of unfair to the new folks coming up. But bottom line is there's a lot of returning sailors that this will be their senior year. If you look across these rosters, great many of these sailors were graduating this coming spring or even the next year in 27, spring of 27. So we expect a really strong season this year with a lot of people returning in absolutely that were top notch last year, and this year they're going to be even better with even stronger support behind them. So we're going to see some depth this year to all the events. In the fall, the Atlantic Coast Championships coming up here in the next few weeks. We'll see the semifinals start here in the next few weeks. October 5th and 4th and 5th is the open semifinals, and the weekend before that is the women's semifinals. Those Atlantic Coast Championships are really the precursor for the nationals. You're going to see the top teams putting their top people in there, and you're going to see kind of the precursor for what the Fleet Racing Nationals is going to look like.
I'm ready to see that. Yeah, there's kind of going to be a senior showdown. Now that I'm thinking about it, like some of the big names we've been seeing. I mean, this is like their chance to go out on top. So I'm really excited. I think this is like some of the best college sailing I think we'll see in a while. Not to say that there won't be new up and comers, but I'm like getting invested in some of these people over the last 4 years, and then seeing them all like duke it out senior, junior, senior year is like pretty epic. So
Lexi, you were at nationals last year. You know, I was standing there watching you take pictures and the group gathering around the award ceremony. And when they announced some of these top sailors and the year that they were graduating, a year or two from last spring, you could hear the groans in the back of the crowd, and they were all saying, "Oh my God, I got to sail against him
another
or
one.
her or them again." I thought they were all graduating, and we'd be done seeing them, and I wouldn't have to compete against them, and they're just coming back for more. So it's going to
Yeah,
be, as you said, we've watched them for the last few years, and it's going to be a really competitive season.
super exciting. And then we've also got the fall, not to be slept on, the fall nationals. There's the single-handed, for those who don't know, single-handed women's and men's, and then the match race national championships both happen in November, and those add to a team's overall foul point ranking. So it's like the best team in college sailing. So we'll be hopefully watching some of that just to see too who's really good in other disciplines. We've got a lot of people coming in from like the international laser scene or the youth match racing like world scene, and to see them all duke it out will be that doesn't necessarily have a bearing on the spring nationals, which is kind of the big thing that everyone looks at. But it'll be really interesting to watch those and see who's kind of got the other disciplines going on too.
Well, so you're going to see the 1st or this 8th and 9th of November at down in Norfolk at Old Dominion. You're going to see the singles, both men's and women's single-handed. And as you know, with U.S. Sailing, that's our pathway to the Olympics program, because we have a direct correlation between our top laser sailors then going back into, and some of them competing in the Olympic trials coming up in 28 to 27 and 28. 15 through actually 16 and 17 are match race championships for college sailing. Will be down with the University of South Florida at St. Pete Yacht Club. They've got a fleet of J70s. First time we'll be in J70s for our match race finals. So that should, ASIM Spinnakers and all the rest. That should be an interesting finals down there. And St. Pete Yacht Club is looking forward to hosting us and helping us get through that time down there. So we're looking forward to this fall, the nationals that we have this fall. And don't forget, the Kennedy Cup is coming up at Navy, big boat championships. A lot of people talk about dinghies. I know the two of you came out of small boats, but University of Wisconsin, Whitney is storming the Great Lakes on the big boat circuit. And a lot of these schools come back and do very well in the Navy 44s that are sailed for the Kennedy Cup and the Macmillan Cup and all the other big boat championships that are around. So we can't forget the people that weigh 100 over 140 or 150 pounds and stand
Yes.
taller than 5'8". So, let's give a shout out to those bigger college sailors that can, drive a boat through a gale and grind you under the floorboards with their huge shoulders. So let's give them a hand on this as well, and understand that there is a whole circuit of people that sail large offshore yachts and boats in college sailing as well.
Yeah, it's really cool to see the growth of that part of college sailing. When I was in college, there was just the Great Lakes IOR was just kind of starting off, and the IOR was obviously well established at that point. But we loved going to those events, and one of the things we talk a lot about on the podcast is borrowed boats and club-owned fleets, and that is a very cool part of the offshore college sailing circuit. That there's so many people willing to let these college sailors race on their boats, and it gets wild out there.
So we would like to see even more of that as we go along. Some of the traditionalists will say college sailing is around about small boats with a combined crew weight of 260, 50 or 60 pounds, but we would like to see kind of the I don't know, in rowing it's called the heavyweight division or whatever you're calling it. The wrestling, it's the larger people instead of the small people. We would like to see an ability to take college sailors of all sizes and give them the opportunity to really get into this sport, a sport that they will be in, as you know, from U.S. sailing for the rest of their life.
Yeah, just kind of the standard adult American male, right? Get them out sailing and college sailing as well. That's great.
Well, even me now, like I if I weighed what I currently do, I would not be able to sail a dinghy in college sailing. Like I'd be way too big. So yeah, I'm
You're
happy to
just strong.
see too strong. Yeah, I got substituted all my practice time for going to the gym. Um, but it is nice to see that we're giving opportunities and having, putting more of a highlight on opportunities, or not just like how small can you be and how can you sail an FJ. So I think that's the other thing about like drawing some focus to the fall nationals, to allow some people who are outside the like standard size for college sailing to have success, because the match racing championship is usually in keel boats, and then obviously single-handed, like you've got to be laser sailor sized, which is often bigger than the average college sailor. I want to put that in
Yeah,
scare quotes.
and a fun way to keep alumni and supporters involved. I've sailed on a couple of those as a coach or the owner's rep, and I think the owners love being a part of some of those offshore events too.
The fact that someone's willing to lend their like big boat that they paid a lot of money for to a bunch of college kids says something about their dedication and want to grow the whole thing, I think.
And we're seeing that a lot. We're seeing some of these classes, the whole class gets together and say that we value this, the 105 class, the Tartan 10 class, huge supporters of a lot of this. We're seeing it across the country in other areas. Some places on the West Coast are supporting us with their match race boats, with their larger match race boats. So we're seeing it more and more. And so I think a lot of these organizations understand that this is your next generation of sailors. This really is those. Yes, they'll graduate college. Yes, they'll spend a couple years learning how to, shake up the job world and get themselves settled. But then they're coming back to sailing. You're going to see them back in sailing in the club. You're going to see them in the class. You're going to see them over and over again. Those people, I was just at the one of the match race qualifiers for the U.S. sailing match race qualifiers, and everybody knows themselves each other from college. They all have
College, yeah.
sailed against, yeah, they know each other from college. They sailed against each other in college, and now they're sailing against each other in match racing and other
Or
and
together.
or together. Yes,
Yeah.
there's whole college boats that come together.
Yeah,
My
The
you
match
have to
race
have
Hinman.
them
team
to
is
sail
all
with a
BU
bunch of
kids.
Hoyas.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
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 So kind of final question to wrap it all up. You talked a little bit about support, and I think this is important for us to talk about is, people I think support their individual teams, but why is it important for people to support ICSA as an organization? I think what the organization does gets kind of lost sometimes. You're like, oh, I donate to my alumni fund or whatever, but not just financial support, but general support for ICSA. Why is that important?
So we can't do this just on the kind of the fees. I think it costs a couple of bucks now to attend a regatta. That regatta costs that home group, whether it's a local regatta or a regional regatta or a national regatta, that regatta costs money. Yes, we generate funds. Yes, we generate fundraising, but if you want a national quality regatta with all the bells and whistles that goes with that people like to watch. You've seen it before where the team racing has got a drone over the top and the commentators are there and they're calling a port starboard cross, or the fleet racing, it shows the entire fleet and you can see it and the excitement. And then you've got the people in the water actually taking photographs of these young sailors that are just, the determination shows every moment on their face. That doesn't come free. We have to have the kind of the support at this point. We would like more people to support not only their college team. Please support your college team. Okay, that was where you grew up. That's where where your alliances lie. But at this point, we'd like when you click on that button to every so often to support your college team, throw a couple of bucks our way, because that's what we do. We put everything together to make the entire college program work for every team, no matter how small or how large. You can donate to ICSA on our website. You can do it through multiple people. And if you can't, email me. You can find me on most of these websites. Email me and I will show you the best ways to do this. All right, because bottom line is we are trying to do something for everybody, and the more we can bring this together for the entire college sailing sport, the more we enable sailing for the long term and for the for everybody's lifelong pursuit of being the best they can at sailing throughout the rest of their long careers and long lives. So please don't forget us. When you give that big donation over there, throw us a bone on the other end and give us a shout out at the same time, and we'd appreciate that greatly.
And everyone,
There you
I mean,
go.
most people know me on on the podcast from being the college sailing photographer. I've seen the back end of all the media stuff. I want everyone to know that is not only not free, it is very expensive. And I think some people have come to expect things like a live stream. Like, y'all do not know that like a live stream is a bare minimum $10,000. That's just like the way that this works. And it's part of why I wanted to talk to you about it is like I see sometimes certain clubs do that, but like ICSA has helped put all of this together, and the media coverage that I love to provide people and that people love to watch is not free. And it does take a lot of effort to put together. So if everyone wants a live stream, please donate to college sailing.
And we
There you
see it every
go.
year. We see it every year. There is more and more demand for that sort of I
Mm-hmm.
want to see this. It's all right. And
Yeah.
so that is not on an individual college. Trust me, most college budgets can't support a live stream for sailing. We don't sell tickets. We don't fill the stands with 100,000 screaming fans. We have screaming fans, but we don't have stadiums. So we have to raise the money elsewhere, and we do that through some great sponsor support. You can find them on our website, but we also do it through donations of individuals that help college sailing a great deal. And we appreciate those folks. We'd like more of you to kind of come back and help college sailing writ large.
Great. Well, thank you, Peter. This was great. Good luck with your first fall season in the job. Hope it goes well. And we appreciate all your time today.
And thank you. I mean, this has been a great time. It's nice to see college sailors giving back to college sailing as well. So I appreciate the opportunity to kind of talk about what we do. And if anybody has any questions, they can contact you folks or contact me directly. And I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Peter. And
Well,
we'll hopefully see you around this fall.
yeah.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Follow the podcast. Send us an email at americansailor@ussailing.org. And thank you all for listening.